Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Wayfare Recording Podcast. Today we are going over podcast specifics and the podcast genres for your show. So this should be pretty quick. This should be pretty straightforward. I feel like we're going over, I can look at the camera and tell you specifically what we are doing without reviewing the whole book. This is a test and I'm already starting to forget what it is. Podcast title, the podcast timeline, the podcast description, and your genre for the podcast. Did I get all that right? Yep, I did. Cool. So yeah, it'll be pretty simple. I might take a little bit of time kind of going over each one, but it's very, I don't know. I feel like by the time you get to this point, you kind of already have an idea of what the show is going to be about and what you want to kind of come across with your show. But it's just putting purpose to, I don't know, what's the ism? Maybe I'm making this up, purpose to pen. I don't know. If not, sounds kind of cool. So podcast title, what is the name of your show? So the name of this show, the one that you're listening to right now, is the Wayfare Recording Podcast. So why that title? Well, it's better to title something without giving a false impression of what it is. So, take for example, right off the top of my head, what's a big podcast show? So let's just say Crime Junkie. Let's go over that one. So I think that's like a top 10 podcast. Crime Junkie. It would be kind of weird if they titled it something like Great British Bake Off review, and someone who's really excited to talk about pastries or listen to someone kind of digesting like what the recent episode was like or something like that. What did Paul Hollywood do? How many times did he say soggy bottoms or something like that? But then they click on it and it's all of a sudden, about crime stuff. Someone committed this or someone did that. And, they found these many people here. And it's like, oh my goodness, that is not what I signed up for. You want to make sure it's titled appropriately. You want to make sure it's titled something that gives the potential listener a great first impression. That's usually what the goal is when you want to push your show out there on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. It's all about first impressions, right? Kind of getting a little ahead of myself, but to kind of hammer it home, like you want a really good podcast artwork. You really want a good description. You want a good title. You want a good, you really want to make sure like you're telling the listener, I'm important above everyone else that is in the search bar that, when you type in podcast how-tos. I want to make sure that I'm clear, specific, distinguished, and set apart from everyone else. And I don't want to give the wrong impression. So yeah, one more example, quick one, Wayfare Recording Podcast. I titled it because that's the name of the agency. Again, if you want to get to know more about this agency, we have an episode 0 out there that you can hear on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. If you're checking us out on the website, hello, thank you for listening to episode 2. You can find more about that. Website, you should know who we are at that point. That's the whole point of the website. But if you want to hear me actually talk about it, episode 0, YouTube, Apple Podcasts. But yeah, that's the name of the business. It's the name of the agency. So why not make it the name of the podcast? Because it just makes sense to me. I don't know. Maybe not. Podcast timeline. This one's a little bit more, we're going on to the next section. This one's a little bit more optional. It kind of just helps kind of clear stuff up maybe. If you're kind of using something like one of our clients with Wayfare Recording, one of our clients, they have a great title for their show. It's called Research Renaissance. But if you just kind of had the title there and it wasn't super clear what the title is off of first impressions, it could be, okay, cool. What are they researching? What's the new age? Renaissance. I don't know if that's what that means, but what's the new age of research coming on here? But but they have a tagline underneath that says "Exploring the future of brain science." Okay, cool. So they're doing brain research. Great. That makes much more sense. Again, great title, but it just kind of helps clear stuff up a little bit. Trying to think of anything else. I wrote a couple notes down here, but that feels really strong to me as an example. I don't know. If you're a Disney kid, I got one for you here. Land of the Giants is the name of it. Okay, cool. So are we like doing a folk tale thing? Are we doing, are we talking about, I don't know, baseball, New York Giants or something like that? Is that right? Yeah. So what does that mean? Well, I kind of already spoiled it by saying Disney kids out there, but it's Land of the Giants and then tagline, the Disney dilemma. Okay, cool. So we're talking about Disney. Something's kind of going on. Great. I'll click on it. I'll go on to an episode, see how it goes. They're not a client, but I just kind of looked it up and I was just kind of scrolling through. I'm like, oh, that's a good example. Cool. I'll use that. Glad I used it. So yeah. And then there's some other podcasts where it's like, it just makes sense on the whole. Like, I like to listen to Rich Roll. So that he has a podcast out called the Rich Roll Podcast. That makes sense. I don't think he has a tagline technically. Yeah. So that makes sense. It's not important to have a tagline, but it can help clear stuff up just in case. Something to think about. It's very optional. Podcast description is the next one. The last topic on our workbook for page number 5. Podcast description. This is your elevator pitch. This is the reason, the definition, the clarity that the potential listener needs to read if they want to commit to listening to an episode of your podcast. So doesn't need to be long. 2 to 3 sentences maybe would be good. 1 if you really want to challenge yourself. So yeah, usually like on, I'm trying to think through of an example on Apple Podcasts. When you click on a podcast artwork and it sends you to their catalog of episodes, usually it's the, I don't know which side this is going to mirror on if you're watching it on video, but top left will be like the podcast artwork. And then to the right of it is going to be the title. And then underneath a couple of follow buttons and stuff, underneath it will be the description of the podcast. It'll tell the listener who they are. So for this one, I don't have one specifically fleshed out yet for this show because, again, I'm working through this workbook with you. And I'm doing all these episodes before I hit publish. So I haven't fully fleshed it out yet as of this recording. But if I could think of one idea, again, I was kind of jotting down some notes. I was thinking something to the effect of John, that's me, John, owner and operator of Wayfare Recording, goes through the process of what it takes to build a podcast. So that's one sentence. I think I'm going to do maybe 2 more, but that's something I have written down to kind of get my ideas going. And yeah, it's just, be simple, be clear, just be earnest. It's the goal. The goal is to get the person to click episode 1 or your trailer. That's the goal. So if you can do that, great. You got a potential follower, potential subscriber, potential fan. So yeah, it's just something to think through, be meditative on, and it should be pretty good. Yeah, I'm trying to think through of anything else for this page. I think that's it. And again, quick little aside before I go into the last section, podcast genre. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Feel free to reach out, schedule a call, talk about it. Yeah, us as a crew, the agency, we offer free 30-minute chats for people. Podcast genre is the next page 6. Again, if you're jumping through, just hanging out, you can download this, check it out. This one's going to be really, really simple. It's literally just I'm kind of on the workbook. I want to help make things easier for you as you set up your publishing. And again, if you find someone that can help you do all this stuff, all the consulting work, like they'll do it for you. And you can give them this and they'll just do boom, boom, boom. We're done. We're good. So normally for most podcast hosting websites like Buzzsprout and Simplecast, they'll ask for 3 genres of what your show is. And underneath that will be subgenres. So to kind of help think through. And this genre list that you'll find on this workbook will, I kind of did a quick little like scrub through of most of these hosting websites to kind of get an idea of what the general subgenres are that they look for. But on here, you'll see like, okay, genre 1, let's just say, right off the top of the list, arts is the overall genre. So the subgenre would be like books, design, food and beauty, fashion and beauty. Food's pretty cool too. Fashion and beauty, food, performing arts, and visual arts. So you'll write down genre 1, arts, subgenre, let's just say food, because I like food. And that's pretty much what you do. That's all it is, really. And the reason why this is important is because it helps categorize your show throughout all of the other shows out there. It helps kind of categorize it. Let's just say you have a really awesome food podcast and you're number 1. So like Apple Podcasts will take your podcast, put it in the category of arts, food, and help, people will be like, oh, I really want to listen to a food podcast. They'll click on it and yours could be number 1 on the list. It's pretty simple. And it's just good for like, buzzword, but, the SEO of podcasting, which, we could talk about later on a different episode. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I think that's it for this episode. I think that's it. The next one's going to be podcast formatting. That one's going to be quite a bit. I don't think maybe it'll be a longer one. Maybe it'll be like 20 minutes long, maybe 30. But that should be it. If you guys, again, I said before my pooch was sleep talking, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Let me know if you have any questions. There should be an email on our website if you want to do that. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube, there should be links to go through and submit a form or to reach out or there's also the comment section on YouTube. Again, I think I said this in the last episode, but it'd be really cool to keep this as a forum type discussion, be really helpful for people. And I don't know, all the other stuff like subscribe, follow, share, comment. Yeah, if you do all that stuff, that helps get the show out to others. But yeah, thanks again for listening to another episode. I hope you guys are doing good and see you in episode 3 or another one if you listen to a different one. Cool. See you guys.